Hey guys, Skill Noodle here. So today I just wanted to break down my process for putting actors inside of a spaceship, and it's more a general video just breaking down compositing, how we mix 3D scenes in with footage, and I'm going to be breaking down the full process all the way from how I created the background, the reflections, to even compositing in After Effects and how I added those final touches that actually glue everything together. If you want to download any of these project files, I'm going to be providing them on my Patreon, link in the description below, so go check that out. There you'll find all my 3D assets, all my 3D scenes, everything, a bunch of good stuff to download that you can use in your artwork as well. So if you're interested in that, go check it out in the link in the description. But without any more hesitation, let's just get right into the video. So this is the original footage we shot on location. As you can tell, we had a jet and some moving lights, a red light inside, a few practical elements that were just going to help composite our footage together. I'm guessing most people won't have access to a jet. We were very lucky to have a jet on this shoot, but you can also do this using a car. You could use a homemade cockpit out of cardboard or whatever you have lying around. Really anything to add a practical effect to the visual effect is going to make it better. And as for the moving light, I basically just spun a light around, just kind of trying to match the motion of what I was going to want in the final scene. But again, the more practical you go, the easier it is to composite the final thing together, as you'll see, especially when we start to add reflections and shake and everything. It all marries together really well. So just remember, it doesn't really matter what you use, as long as you build something or use a car or use really anything you have access to will help you get a better result. So now, before we do any kind of masking or anything, the first thing I actually went about doing was I lined up my camera with my cockpit here. So what's important about this is that whatever you shoot with, make sure to take a photo scan or replicate in 3D your actual shape. Luckily, I was able to find an exact model of the jet we were shooting with. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. For example, on another shot, I just basically took a cylinder and cut some of the window shapes out, actually using the footage as reference, just using a knife tool. It doesn't have to be the cleanest topology. It's really just there for mostly reference and then later for our reflections. And the reflections won't be too affected by the topology. Just make sure it's somewhat clean, that there's not huge distortions. So as you can see here, I don't even have everything super perfectly lined up because it just doesn't have to be. It just needs to be generally on key. You can see here as I fade in between, it kind of matches up enough so that when I use this for reflections, it's going to work. And also for my background is actually going to line up. For the background, that was actually really easy. You can see here on the right window, I basically just added a bunch of these buildings from my building asset pack, again on my Patreon if you want to go check that out and download those and use them in your artwork. But I basically just added a bunch of these, and I parented my camera once I lined it up with the jet and had the jet move through the environment. So you can see down there, that's the jet moving, and now I had basically this moving background with my footage. So, and I don't even need this footage for when I render out. So as you can see, it's very simple. If you check this motion blur box down here, it's going to come out super blurry. It's not going to be actually that noticeable in terms of background. I just needed something to fill out the background and imply that there was a city, and something to motivate the reflections that I was going to add to the jet later. I remember when you render everything out, you're not going to want to have the spaceship actually in the shot. We're actually going to come back to do that later for reflections, but just make sure you have a plain, clean slate background that you're going to be able to put behind your spaceship. And as for the reflection map that we actually rendered, if you click down on this, you can turn on masking. I have a mask turned on all the layers and Atmos turned off. I make sure not to have any kind of volume or anything because I don't need that for the reflection. And I basically just had the buildings, as you can see if I unmask them here. But I had all that masked out, and just where my windshield was, I had basically just a black glossy material placed on it. I go frame by frame, you'll see the lighting kind of moves across. And I just rendered this out as well, just no background, no nothing. This was actually really fast to render, but it's just the reflections moving across the windshield. So when I composite this on top of my original footage, it's gonna just show the white spots on top of my original footage. So once you have everything rendered out, your reflection map, background, and you have your footage in After Effects, you can basically start combining everything together. So the first thing I did was I actually added a mask to this. I made sure that the camera was locked down, so making a mask was pretty easy. It didn't require any kind of motion tracking or anything, especially since I knew I wanted to add shake after. You don't need to film anything like that. It wouldn't be worth it. It would just create more of a headache for you than it would make anything easy. So make sure to shoot everything locked down. Unless you have some kind of motion control or a lot of tracking points, or you just really want to track it for whatever reason. You can do that, but I stuck with lockdown shots. It seemed ambitious enough on its own, so all I had to do was basically draw a box right here. And it's pretty easy to mask in After Effects. You can just take the pen tool, trace a shape, and you can also pull while drawing a shape to create a curve, and then you can extend that curve and adjust using these handles, and you basically just make a mask that way, and you just have to close it off to complete the mask. So you'll see if I do that, if I do add, subtract, I can take away a piece, and I can always change it after. I can always edit my mask later. But again, it's very easy to mask, and I made my job easy just because everything was locked down, so I had to create one mask and it worked for the entire shot. And then the next thing I did was just basically drag my background on the layer below it, and now you can already see it's not a finished shot by any means, but it already kind of works well together. And then the final layer was this reflection map. So if I turn off this blending mode, you'll see, and I even turned down the opacity, it's just a black and white map that I basically lined up over my spaceship or my jet, and it just acted as a reflection. But when I switch from blending mode to screen, you can see because the windshields are black, it's only going to show the parts that are lighter than the pixels below them. So the only part that comes through of it are the basically the white pixels. So it looks like reflections across the windshield. So once I had my 3 layers all put together, I basically started messing around with lumetri colors. So you can see that actually everything doesn't match up all that well originally. I didn't have to color correct the bottom layer or the reflections. I mostly just worked on my raw footage. I basically mostly messed with the black values, the white values, the shadows, and the contrast. But once I had all these colors tweaked, the 3 layers put together, everything looked pretty good, and I was ready to move on to the final step. And the final step was adding camera shake. So this was actually the easiest thing to do. I basically just imported my clip after exporting it from After Effects into Blender. If you're wondering how to do that, you can just go Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and then Images as Planes. Basically, I just exported my footage from After Effects, and I just had it right here to select. And make sure when you import an image as plane, make sure to hit Animate Image Sequences if it's a clip instead of an image. That made sure that I just had all my frames inside of Blender, and I also set it to an emission shader with a strength of 1. And then once I did that, all I had to do was select the camera, open up my graph editor down here, and then click down on these basically these object transform settings, and clicked on Z location, and I just added a little bit of noise, tweaked some of the settings, lowered the strength, and I kept the scale the same, and it basically just added a little bit of shake to my camera. So the camera's shaking, and that affects this, and then I basically turned on motion blur. The reason I used this instead of After Effects was that I just like the motion blurring effect. So after adding a little shake to the camera, I was ready to render everything out. And here you can see the final results. So once I added camera shake, the reflections, the background, and everything was kind of glued together with color correction, I ended up having a shot I was really happy with. Again, this shot wasn't too hard. I mean, I had a lot of help with the practical elements there, moving lights, having an actual jet on set. But this is something you can do with pretty much anything. If you built your own cockpit, that would also be really cool. Whatever you have available, this effect can be done at home to some level. Ultimately, I was happy with the results. I was able to do a lot of these shots pretty quickly for the music video. We ended up having about 12 of these shots throughout the entire music video, so I was able to do a few different setups. Some were from inside the jet, some were outside the jet, some were from the side, some were from the front, and I was able to make a variation of different shots that all felt pretty good. So if you want to see me do any more videos like this, let me know in the comments below. I haven't done a ton of VFX specifically. I've mostly focused on just CGI and environments, assets, those sort of things. So if you want to see more VFX, let me know below. I'd love to do more of these. And if you want to download these project files and break them apart, or even download the buildings you see in the background or the spaceship model, go check out my Patreon. You'll be able to download all of it. So that'll be in the description below if you want to go check that out. But anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope to see you guys next time, and have a good one.